I've seen everything from, stalker steers that were harvested as fat steers. They look like deer. They have almost no fat on the outside, dry, overaged meat, thinking that's going to tenderize it. And really all you do is you create a problem with flavors and rancidity and all these things. And lose a lot of weight also. You'll be selling 30 or 40% less carcass if you age it for too long and it hasn't had enough, it didn't have enough blanket on the outside. So yes, aging helps, but there is a limit to it, and it all depends on how fat and how well finished that animal was.
How long do you do it in Argentina?
Well, at home we're not an example because we don't age the meat much. In 3-4 days, it goes to the market, and that's a custom thing. People don't think about aging, really. But I would say that we're losing a little bit of our quality there because if we kept the carcasses in the cooler for at least 10 days, we'll be eating much more tender meat, much tender. So, yes, I wouldn't say just don't age, I say age, but 7-14 days, 7-10 days, it's about the time where you can go cut. If you're doing dry aging, you don't have to, in my opinion, you wouldn't have to have the carcasses in the cooler for 21 or 28 days, and that's money. I mean, one of the reasons they don't do age there because the cost of the cooler space and all these problems. Yes, sir.
Is that a moisture loss on the carcass when you age it, or is that actually?
It's a lot of loss of moisture loss.
Oh.
Yes. And it is a significant loss. Sometimes it's 25%. It could go from 5% if you well managed carcass to 25 if you're not careful. So if you have an extra lean carcass and you're not really controlling that cooler, so the temperature fluctuate and they're not dropped to 2 Celsius. That's 38 Fahrenheit, 2 Celsius. Well, if they're not managed properly to the proper temperature, I have to look that up. I don't remember the conversion, but yes, you could lose a lot of water. And so fast chilling is something that you don't want to do. You don't want to freeze the carcass in a fast manner. You want a slow drop of temperature, but not too slow or jumping all over. It has to go to the proper temperature fairly quick. That means in less than 12 hours. But it doesn't have to be done in 5 or 2. Again, most of these packing plants or processing plants, they don't do a bad job at that. They know exactly how to chill, Sometimes the risk is when you have just a few carcasses and you end up on one of the sides of the cooler, and the sides of the cooler tend to be colder, and sometimes the meat freezes on the outside. So it'd be nice to have if you're the only ones with carcasses in that cooler, it'd be nice to have these cheesecloth blankets that they make that slow down the chilling on the outside, or just have your carcasses in between the other ones that are already there. Yeah, but they're cold. They're not really freezing, but they're protecting your new carcasses from getting frozen. Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that I understand the studies and the graphs we've been going over, that the animals at slaughter, they were all the same age.
Yes. In this study, they were all the same age. Well, I should say within the 2-month range, of course, not exactly the same age.
How does the weaning mechanism of the animal affect the development of, and the stress involved in that?
Here?
As far as age you wean, how do you do it?
Yes. My suggestion is that we do it that calf is gaining, the little calf is gaining on his mother, most likely more than he will be gaining by himself a month or 2 after weaning, unless he's in a very difficult pasture and his mother is losing weight and everything is a chaos. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we, more than the process of weaning, I look at when I'm weaning. And I would like to have a pasture of quality for that calf to go to before making that decision. If it's going to be at 4 months of age, 6 months of age, 8 months of age, or even later. So adjusting that is more important than how to wean. That's my opinion. If that calf was on its mother having a difficult time, and that difficult time is gaining less than a pound a day, in my view. Again, you ask me for this research, and I'm going to say I don't have enough research to back this up, but this is our experience. If you are below 1 pound a day, that calf is growing 1 pound a day on his mother, something that's not too good for him, because he will be doing better than that. He should be doing better than that. If he's in that situation, then yes, you can wean him to almost any diet, pen-fed or grass, that you could prepare for that calf, and he's most likely the little calf is going to do better by himself. But that's the situation that we're not into most of the time. Most of the time we are into a situation where cows are doing well, fairly well. The calves are above a pound a day. Little calves, sometimes they are 2 pounds a day, even more. So then we have to consider when we're going to wean that calf, is that calf going to be able to keep that gain, that performance of 1.5 pounds a day? If he can do that, then we can go ahead and wean. But if he can't do that, then we might be better off just keeping that calf on the cow. The way how we do wean, we just separate the calf. So I know that many of you do the fence weaning, and there's less stress. What do you call that fence? Hot fence. Well, we don't, but because of numbers sometimes. If you have 100 heads, you may do the fence. If you're talking about 400 cows that you have to wean, or 500 or 1,000 of them. Some just remove the cows to another pasture, keep the calves on that for a day or two, and then move them somewhere else. That's more stressful, but I don't think that has a huge impact on the calf's performance in the future. What has the major impact is how well he grows from birth, even before birth, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. How well he grows from birth to weaning, and then it's very critical after weaning until he's a year old or maybe 9 months old. What do you do? What are you going to do? What is the diet for that calf? If he drops the performance, he drops his growth, then we're hurting that calf ability to develop fatness. We're hurting the development of all of this adipocyte, the fat cells. Fat cells develop early on before birth. We know that in the last few months of gestation, we're developing many of these adipocyte cells, fat cells in the future fat cells. The first few months of, months from 4 to 6 months of age, there is another wave of developing for the development of these adipocytes, fat cells. And I understand from what I know, I've been reading about, I guess, that until about a year of age, there is a lot of impact of the diet on this proliferation of these adipocytes. And these are the little fat cells in the muscle that we will fill up in the future. Although there is a turnover and they keep developing, but there's an impact on what we do early on that calf, preparing that calf for this ability to fatten in the future. So we don't want to hurt that calf early, put him to suffer on his mother or even by himself too early, because that finishing ability will not happen. And I don't have enough information on this muscle and connective tissue ratios, the effects on that, the diet on his mother, and then what will happen to connective tissue in the future. But most likely there is a correlation. But so far, where we know that the fattening ability is also associated to what happened during this early times when the calf was on its mother and right after weaning. So again, I don't know if I've answered, but I think if we're not sure what kind of forage or diet that calf is going to have, we are better off keeping that calf on the cow. And you say, yeah, but the cow may not rebreed back. She's already bred or she's open. That story is over. See, we may have to destock if she's not going to breed back the next season. But removing the calf from the cow when that calf is already 6 months old, 4 months old, it's not going to help the actual breeding because it should be over already. If it's not over yet, we have a major mess. We have a 6-7 month breeding season, and we're not on control. We're not controlling our operation. The operation is running us. Is that making any sense? We're going to keep talking about this all for over and over. But again, let's keep going here. So let's go back to our steaks here. See the whiteness? These are grass-fed, pasture-finished, whatever. Yellowness, you have to measure here. Of course, if I put a steak here that was a grain-fed and I bring that machine, it will tell me that this will look slightly yellowish compared to the white fat that we produce out of corn or sorghum-based diet. But this is pretty white. This guy here has a little less marbling, but again, this is to show that maybe this here, this is not exactly marbling. This is development of connective tissue more than anything. We have a little more marbling here, though, than exactly here. So
does that connective tissue mean that it's going to be tougher?
it's likely this is going to be slightly tougher. Yes. Yes. So this steak, it was as tender as more tender than this, although it has a little less fat. It has enough less fat, intramuscular fat, but it has enough back fat here that steak cuts. Ages well. We have no problem during aging and protects the moisture. All right. So I really don't see a problem. This wouldn't make a low choice. They were just going to make more like a high standard or standard. But the tenderness-wise, they're the same, or this one is even better. Okay. This is another study that we did. We're not finished yet with it, but sometimes things are not exactly a match. But we went for 2 years and 3 years of age at slaughter. 2 years and 3 years. Again, you see what I was talking about, shear force? Even up to 3 years. What did we do here? We put in these animals, these 3-year-old animals at slaughter, we didn't put them through a struggle. We actually kept them on a low but consistent rate of gain. So they were gaining well, not as good as the other ones, but not a lot of struggle. And we ended up with a similar shear force. Same group, we had a control group with a feedlot finished animals. This was slightly 28 newtons against 29. And here we have comparison of the feedlot versus grazing, combining the 2 and 3 year old, 28.6, 31. This tenderness here shows different in the numbers, but there is no significant effect. And no panel can tell this apart. No taste panel can tell this shear force, this tenderness score apart. Aging, 3 days, 14 days, 3 days, 14 days. See how aging drops the tenderness, increases the tenderness, drops the shear force? And this is significant. SE is a standard error. It's a statistical. Yes, sir.
When you say aging, we're talking dry aging, wet aging?
This is dry aging. It's a dry aging 3 days or 14 days. Hanging the carcass in a cooler and then cutting the sample off and then freezing that sample for analysis.
You mentioned the cheesecloth blanket.
Not in this case, we didn't need it, but if the cooler is too it's big and it's too cold. Sometimes the freezing on the sides. Then the cheesecloth blanket helps us to protect from over chilling or freezing the outside. Yes, sir.
On that shear force thing, I've understood that 29 was optimal shear force for tenderness.
Well, on the Newton, yeah, 30 is the same is as good.
Oh, okay. So if 29, 30, and 34 would be out of the question?
Would be a slightly, no, not out of question, but it's a little bit tougher.
Okay.
Yes. Remember here we're using these Newtons units.
Pardon me?
The units here are Newtons, called Newtons.
Okay.
So these are not just pounds. This is a different unit. This is similar. This is a conversion. This is a more European unit. Let's see what's there. So, aging, if we look at the figures, and we did up to 25 days, 21, 25, 28, excuse me. Look at this, the shear forces or the tenderness. The pasture steers in this case were up there, and these were below here. The difference again was so short that when you do it when a panel, having people give their opinion, we couldn't tell apart. The panel found as the numbers increased here, the tenderness increased. This is a different scale. They found the 14-day aged beef a little more tender than the 3-day, but there is no differences here and no differences in 28 days of aging. So again, the whole story repeats, and everything goes back to this. I think we keep talking about getting this minimum amount of fat, making that animal's life easy, what they call the luxury life. And it's all associated to grazing, quality grasses or quality forages. I wish we could have, in most of the cases, most of the time, the highest quality pastures are the leaves, the leafy pastures. Leaves are what we need to harvest. Stems, other things, they're not as good. Yes, of course, this is the ideal world. We're not here ever, but that's what we have to keep in mind. When we're harvesting a field for hay or we're harvesting a field for silage, yeah, high yields per acre are interesting, but if we're harvesting stems, if we're harvesting too much fiber, not too many leaves, we're getting away from our target, from the quality of that grass or forage that we need. So this would be the perfect world. Unrestricted intake of leaves year-round. Wow, that would be the ideal world, and no bloat. Huh? Green leaves, yeah, green leaves like this. We have not many places in the world where you can have that.
Yeah, really.
Maybe the New Zealanders do. Some places a little far north from where I am, they can do some of that, some of this almost 11 months, 10 months of the year. We count where we are. But again, this is what we're targeting for, and this doesn't mean that washy feed that I was talking about. Leaves have to be structured. If you look at these pictures closely, we're going to go through them tomorrow. We're not talking this, 5-inch or 3-inch grass. We're talking grass. I mean, we're talking green growing grass that has digestible fiber to it and the balance. And we're going to talk about the balance tomorrow too. So again, this is what I would like you to keep always in mind, that we're targeting for. We're talking about pastures. We're grazing pastures. We're not just grazing short little plants. We have to take great pastures. And many of us, again, are used to this. I've been here in the U.S. several times, and I've been to ranches and places where they graze very good pastures, and this is part of the story, but it's not of it. It's not all of it. The picture of a nice set of steers grazing. Let's see if I have any picture anymore. Like this one right here, up in the top here. These are steers out of Nebraska in summer. This is not from my home, and you couldn't get any better than